Hi, welcome. My name is Dale McCluskey. On this video, I want to talk about tools. How tools align by way of this one-of-a-kind system of training that, again, changes perception of dogs the right way. Again, bringing influence into the equation. And again, so when I talk about tools, it's all about talking about a process at the same time. Okay, so it changes the context of certain tools. Now, when I talk about certain tools, again, and here's an example of a tool here, which is a very popular tool. It's a pinch collar, prong collar. People refer to it different ways. But again, even some of these tools themselves, there's a lot of controversy because a lot of these tools are being banned in certain places. But understand, it's also a lack of understanding by way of what influence even represents. So understand that what's popular right now, this idea that trains a learning-based exercise, I talk about that, okay? The issues with that by way, again, of a picture, okay? So as dogs are responding, they're moving around, look fantastic in the training environment, only to discover that those responses, okay, are not representing that the perception of the dog's actually changing, okay? So I talk about, why it's so important to understand the process itself. So again, I talk about certain tools such as the prong collar. Understand that you could use something like this, the prong collar, and people will look at something like this and just from the imagery itself say that's cruel and it's abusive and all these different things. But understand, whenever you look at a tool, you never want to filter it that way, just off of appearances. Because understand, the problem in the dog training world is appearances, right? It's about responses that are superficial. So it's about depth. Okay, so understand that whenever you look at a tool, say, don't go by the way it looks, but ask yourself the question, is it a tool that's going to align properly by way of a proper process? Okay, so when I look at a tool, you have to ask certain questions. So here, understand that the prong collar, even though the prong collar will generate a better response from the dog, okay, to have a better walk, it doesn't mean that you're going to have a better relationship. Okay, and when I say better relationship, it means that that's still an open door for a dog to still hold control in the relationship, saying, you know what, sure, I'll respond to this tool based on what this tool represents. So understand that based again on how you see the prongs on here. So right away, that's influence. So it's going to you really quickly, okay, generate a response from a dog. But in terms of the setup, okay, to be able to be dialed in terms of corresponding to influence in certain moments itself, it is not, okay, I'll say this very clear, it's not the best tool to use, okay, and we'll talk about this because, again, understand, this is why people, they'll be like, well, my dog is fantastic when, say, this tool's on or when the remote collar's on, but when that tool's off, it's like I'm back to square one. It's like I don't, the dog's still out of control. And that's the problem, right? It's like the dog saying, well, this isn't lining up. The person, the human, isn't changing, okay? They're not fading in. So the word fading I use is like a parent fading into the relationship. Now, the tools that I do recommend, okay, we'll talk about this briefly, is you'll see with dogs is just a typical standard flat collar. Okay, this is a smaller one for a smaller dog. And what's referred to as a choke chain, okay? But understand, it's not about choking dogs. Understand, you see a lot of inflammatory rhetoric on social media. But understand where that's coming from, okay? That's coming from two groups, okay? It's coming from those who identify as force-free trainers, okay, who are totally sold out to this idea that trains a learning-based exercise, okay, who are just superficially motivating dogs at the very beginning, and they're putting their total faith, trust, and hope in the responses in a very appearance-based way. Okay, they're trying to lift that up as a standard, and this is a problem because understand that just like I talk about the parenting example, you could have a child that's already selfish, make their bed, pick up their toys for something they want, like an Xbox game. Doesn't mean whatsoever that their attitude is getting better or their perceptions are changing if you're not aligned with the right parenting style and everything goes along with that, okay, by way of being dialed in, interacting with, okay, there's that word, interaction based, that's going to establish, okay, parental influence, okay, so this is why certain moments will reveal truth, and other moments, right, going to be based on assumptions that aren't true, right, so it's understanding again, the role of influence at the very beginning. Okay, so, but again, I talk about, you know, a collar, such as, you know, again, the same imagery. You know, you see a choke chain. Understand that the bad imagery for this comes through even in terms of those who identify as balance trainers who are in a reactive posture. Okay, understand they're not dialed in the same way as to what I advocate. So the tendency is to delay, okay, and wait for certain moments to already be happening, okay, and therefore the tendency is to jerk, yank, and crank, and that's where certain tools get a really bad reputation because they're not. Number one, the process itself isn't correct. Number two is therefore the role of influence isn't going to line up. So here, if you dial in properly, then you'll see on my videos how it's taking the form of a nudge, okay? And there's also what I call release points, okay? So it's not about choking dogs and strangling dogs. I understand all that rhetoric and language, it's coming from those who are aligned with a process itself that doesn't line up, okay? And therefore, it's an open door for dogs that continue to hold control in the relationship. So again, the choke chain itself is a better tool, okay, especially for bigger dogs. Dogs are holding a lot of control because again, in terms of getting pulled off your feet, getting injured, okay, it's a way to establish control over a dog. But again, understand it's always about being dialed in properly. So therefore, if you're dialed in properly and influence is corresponding to the dog's state of mind, it changes everything, okay, it changes everything. And so therefore, it really, you know, keeps things leveled out. Dogs are going to be more agreeable, and it's going to create real change. So again, you'll see these you know, with dogs wearing these, you know, both these tools at the same time, and I'll switch back and forth, okay, depending on the interaction itself. But again, it's always about understanding tools. If you have questions, contact me. I'll be more happy to answer them. I have a 10-part series on my website available, which is extremely informative, called Learning Theory Breakdown. I encourage you to watch that as well. Thanks for watching.